having a lovely rom-com adventure while the episode goes on behind you. It's V'ger Please, A Hateful Voyage through the Delta Quadrant. My name is Joseph.
And I'm your co-host, Peter.
Peter, I had an interesting experience this week, which of course you know about because we're recording this episode on a Sunday. I had something that I hadn't had in a while. A cold. It's amazing the things you don't experience when you're working from home and you don't interact with people for like 2 years. And then suddenly all that ends and you get a cold and you're like, what's this illness? What is this sickness?
How very season 1 Next Generation of you. It sounds to me like you're Beverly Crusher sitting in awe and wonderment at the fact that Picard got a fabled headache when encountering the Stargazer.
I do know that as a man with 3 children, the idea of not getting constantly sick with some low-grade cold is probably adorable to you, but it was quite the unpleasant experience for me.
I've got a good immune system. I'm watching my kids get sick left and right, and my wife, and I'm just dodging it like Wesley Snipes dodging taxes, man. I'm bullet time over here, but I'm sure something will catch me. I'm sure I'll get it soon.
Well,
enough.
Speaking of things being captured, what episode of Voyager did we watch this week?
Season 7, episode 16, Workforce, Part 1, a.k.a. the labor shortage of the United States in 2021.
How oddly timely that we are reviewing this now. So
we get so many of those, man. We got macroism to ride in COVID. It's some really fantastic timing.
So in case there is some future person that listens to this podcast at some point in like 2024 and wondering what the fuck we're talking about, here in October of 2021, the United States is suffering from a shall we say, distinct labor shortage in terms of a lot of low skill to specialized labor roles. So from everything from kind of like your retail and fast food service worker to like truckers and, you know, like people with skills, but also not necessarily the highest paying jobs. And it's created shipping delays and big backups at ports. And there's like a lot of speculation that Christmas shopping season will go poorly and blah, blah, blah. I can't buy anything, can't find anything. And
Raising Cane's closes at 5 o'clock, and Taco Bell is paying people $18.50 an hour with a $500 sign-in bonus, which for Central Ohio is like absurd. But anyways, I can sympathize with whoever these aliens are, and if I had a way to kidnap people and brainwash them into doing warehouse labor for me, I would be all over that. So
we know a fair amount of Australians, so if we showed up on their shores, they should probably be suspicious of us, is what you're saying. Especially if we have like nets and little things that we jab into necks.
Like inject things, not steal neck juices. Do I look like Seska? I mean, come on.
One of the things I wanted to talk about first in this episode thankfully happens first, which is the CG in this episode is extremely good.
And boy, aren't they proud of it. We get the most sweeping shots of CGI that we have seen in a long time. Obviously, there is a strong vibe I got off of this, of the old silent film Metropolis.
Yes. They had a very specific industrial vibe that they went for in terms of the CG, which is extensive, and they deliver on it. And I also want to say that this is because of the continued maturity of that technology that was in its infancy when the show began and has continued to become easier for them to manipulate as they go on, and prefaces the continued improvement they're going to see in Enterprise. Not to spoil anything, but the CG there actually gets quite good, and Enterprise is actually also shot and broadcast in HD.
Oh, really?
Which is it's changed from the rest of Berman era Trek, which is all standard definition except literally TNG that got the HD remaster.
I gotta tell you, man, like going back and watching stuff 480, it's charming.
There's a retro quality to it.
I won't even. I guess retro, maybe nostalgia. Like, I don't know. It feels good having that fuzzy lack of perfect clarity and seeing every razor bump and stray hair out of place. Like, obviously we grew up with this stuff, so I'm sure that's where I'm drawing these fond feelings from. I wonder when kids, so again, as we've talked about a lot, Voyagers in that rotation, there's people watching it for the first time, myself included, and I think there's a lot of younger people getting onboarded into Trek, hitting the next gen, hitting the Voyager, and I'm very curious for a lot of them. I mean, that has to be their first real foray into the old days, the pre 1080 days.
These shots, though, they're great. They start with a big pan of the city. It moves into an overhead to an elevator that goes down. It's very intricate. There's lots of detail.
Lots
It
of moving
is
parts, lots of people.
There is just a ton going on here that is not standard, and it's not the end of the good CG. When eventually Voyager will arrive at the planet that a lot of the action is taking on, there's a planetary shield, there's space stations, there's other ships. Like, this whole episode definitely spends some time with its effects, and all of it is good.
And to be fair, I mean, this is stuff we should have been seeing the whole time. A lived-in spacefaring quadrant where you have trade hubs and all this other stuff that, unfortunately, production budget, because of the cost of CG, would often hamper. And I mean, I want to say it's been less than 5 times that we have seen bustling, mercantile, heavily trafficked planetary orbits.
It feels like the Delta Quadrant is sometimes very empty and lawless rather than feels lived in, like you said. And aside from like your fair trades and that sort of thing, where they've managed to capture a bit of that chaotic commercial energy, they have not managed to do that particularly well. But they've done it very well here. So props for this one.
Now, for all the money that they spend on sweet ass CG, they did not get that budget in actually building the sets. So as we move into things, if you will recall back to, I don't know if it was Dark Frontier. I'm sure Dark Frontier we talked about it. Basically, anytime we've ever encountered the Borg.
Yeah.
Those goddamn Spencer Gift novelty electrical lightning circles.
They get a ton of mileage out of those, man. They made one run to the mall, and they have gotten a dozen episodes worth of use out of those fucking things.
I don't know what episode we really went into talking about what Spencer's Gifts is and its place in the American mall system, but it's those may have at this point replaced the 3 light bulb rotating red laser thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
The fluorescent red lights that are in every engineering shot of all time. Yeah, the Borg discs, very popular.
So this episode, as I used in my opener, has 2 distinct tracks. One track is that Kate Mulgrew is in a soap opera, and she's having a lovely rom-com adventure. It's actually really nice, and sweet and lovely. And then the other track of the episode is the weird Star Trek sci-fi shit that's happening. And it is a 2-parter, so I do understand why one seems entirely separate from the other. But Kate Mulgrew is much more comfortable, I think, playing Janeway in the fashion she does here, because she's not the captain. She's still her, but she's not the captain. And I felt like I felt that in the performance of, like, her personality's mostly there. She's mostly the same person, but if you strip away the sort of Starfleet hierarchical senses that she has, and just, like, this is Kathy, who lives down the street in Bloomington, Indiana, this is who she would be. I liked that. I liked that a lot. And that this is really about her going to a job and meeting a guy she likes and getting dick for the first time in 7 seasons. Like, I'm here for this adventure for her. There's a journey.
Flesh dick.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've had some photonic dick. Yeah. This is her first IRL dick. in 7 seasons, and I was rooting for her. She
Analog peen. That's interesting framework. At first I thought you were talking about the comfort level and the character coming through being Kate Mulgrew, who we know has a very strong
soap opera background from Ryan's Hope, yeah. Which again, I think that's really why she feels more like the character feels just a little bit more vibrant
well,
when
I was
she's
initially going
able
to
to do it
say,
this way.
like, after 7 years of playing Janeway, I would think that her comfort in a Starfleet uniform in a future ship should rival, if not surpass, her soap opera days. But taking this as you've just presented it, that this is still Kathryn Janeway, and if you just pulled out her Starfleet programming and she didn't have to be mean and make life and death decisions and forge alliances with the Borg so they could continue slaughtering billions of people. If you could take all that guilt off of her shoulders, that there might be a pretty happy, cheerful person underneath there. And so this episode, I feel like, is overshadowed by a question I have to ask, which is, why does this need to be the 2-part episode? There have been so many great episodes that I think they have done injustice to the series by making it be a single episode and not exploring certain avenues. If we go back to what was the Doctor gets stuck on the future planet? What was that episode?
Oh, right, the one with the planet is moving at super speed, and he winds up down there for what was supposed to be just a few days, but winds up being years because it takes him forever to get him back. I forget the name of that one, but it was among our favorites of season 5, I believe.
Yeah, a lot of cool story to tell there, and it, you don't have to go far in our episodes to find situations like, I want to know more about this, I want to see more about this person. So when I watch
We
this,
commonly fix an episode by saying, "What if this was 2 parts?" and then like
sure.
flesh out what that would look like. We do that a lot.
So spoiler alert, I mean, I like this episode, and I started off not liking it, and I started off resenting it, saying like, why is all this fucking fluff in here? Because I feel like in the end this is going to be, I'm going to say, this could have very easily been a single episode, and they squandered the 2 show uh package deal on something that's ultimately not that special. And I think to really kind of frame that thought, we need to talk about what's going on here exactly. We've got a bunch of Voyager cast or crew members, and they're not wearing uniforms. They're not using rank. They're going about their day just punching the clock at a power plant like they're Homer Simpson and his buddies. And as they encounter each other, they don't recognize each other. So we know that something has taken the crew of Voyager and indoctrinated them or persuaded them or hypnotized them, or call it what you will, but they are going about lives that are not the right lives. Yet, as you've pointed out here, surprisingly, Kathryn Janeway is still Kathy Janeway, and she's from a place called Earth. But it's not the Earth of the United Federation of Planets. This is like the Earth of aliens, right?
Right.
This
This
is
is.
that fucking shithole that
I was gonna
people
say
want to.
Blade Runner, but
Well, hey, listen, in my book, that's the same Earth, right? That's a shared universe.
the overall concept is that clearly something fucky is about because we see Janeway, but she's not the captain. We see Seven of Nine, but she goes by Annika Hansen, and she is the Frosty Ice Queen performance monitor at the
Chief
power plant.
efficiency officer. I before we move on, man, like, everybody's got a pretty good role that suits them and their skill set. You've got the smartest human being in the entire fucking galaxy with all of the knowledge of the Borg. She is the smartest. She could be calibrating the fucking doodads the best. And you've hypnotized her into being the fucking hall monitor.
They may not have known that, right? Like, ultimately, what we're going to find out is that the Voyager crew seems to have been chemically, medically had their memories altered, and so that they would be happy as workers on this planet. That's the plot that we're going to see unfold. They may not have known that Seven of Nine is literally the smartest person ever to exist. So it makes sense that they would be like, well, she's just knows everything, so she can keep everybody else in line.
She's just a ball buster and a bitch, man. Yeah, put her.
And so they see how tall she is, they see her imperious blonde haircut, and they're like, she clearly should just be in charge. This is just this is the way it should be.
Give her a ruler, she can crack some people on the knuckles, call it a day. Real quick, side note, pretty good future civilian clothes here. Special shout out to Tom Paris, the new bartender.
I do like some of the character notes that work their way into the performances here beyond just Kathryn Janeway, right? Like, Tuvok is...
my favorite, man. This is so good.
Tuvok is still Tuvok in that he is like a stilted way of talking and being a Vulcan, but his emotional barriers have been breached by his memory rewrite. So there's a scene where he acknowledges a bunch of jokes being told by explaining them and killing them in front of everybody.
But laughing his ass off in the process.
Yeah. Tom Paris is, he got drafted to be a worker in this place, but he's still such a fucking rebel, he quits on his first day.
Got fired.
His wild spirit cannot be tamed even by the greatest Delta Quadrant medical science. He is, of course, immediately wanting to flirt with the ladies that come in, including the random Bolian lady that we've seen in the background multiple times through the show at one point, who's one of the workers because she's one of the crew on Voyager. I also really liked that Kathryn, she has a thing for older guys, right? Like that's kind of her character. Her fiance Mark was kind of like a silver fox from way back at the beginning of the show. Her two other romantic connections throughout the whole series have been like the Inquisitor guy and the rugged Irish holographic barkeep, who have both been, I think, at least at a minimum close to her age, but elevated. Definitely probably a little older. And then this guy that she winds up just meeting, this nice dude who works at the power plant that she just flirts with and makes a connection with. That again is just an older guy. She has a type.
She's got a type.
Yeah.
I'm there for it. I mean, certainly not the most egregious thing we've seen when it comes to...
I like that they established that she has a type, though. Like, there's a consistency in this. It's good.
She's got a type. Harry Kim's got a type. Harry Kim
fucks
kids.
Children. Yeah, obviously.
I want to talk about Tuvok, man. So this is written by Kenneth Biller and Brian Fuller. I mean, you really got the A-team there, right? Directed by Alan Croker. I thought the spin they put on Tuvok is very interesting. This is a real talk Tuvok. This is Tuvok without logic, and he is not a roving lunatic murderer, right? He's enjoying life, and it's very interesting to see, again, the math they built this episode on, where everything is still there, but the guardrails are missing. And I want to give the credit to Tim Russ, I think. I mean, Tim knows Tuvok better than any of the writers, and I think probably a lot of the spin on this is coming from his own personal notes, and it was really cool. And it was this highlights how much acting goes into Tuvok. Tuvok's always this dead fish. You know what you're going to get. That's what you get. And it's also what you're going to get the next time. And unless he's really off his rocker and shit's wrong, like, it's always Tuvok the even-handed. So seeing Tim Russ act what I think is a lot like Tim Russ, and like feeling that instant connection to this character and the charm, and being like, fuck yeah, man, like, just highlights what length he goes to conceal all of that.
We've had hints of that through the run of the show too, where we had the whole flashback to his past, where he used to be pretty hot-headed and desperate to F. Also, I think was the thing that he wanted to like bang someone's daughter or something, some off-worlder or something like that, and had to learn to temper himself. So to see a little bit of that unleashed, because his personality, while still there, some of the the wiring's been changed and that this was the result was
What
interesting.
episode was that? Because that was a shitty episode that sucked ass, but like that was cool character building they did in it.
That's all I remember from that episode is the cool part, and I want to leave it that way, Peter. The show can't hurt me if I don't
Yeah,
remember the things that hurt me.
I mean, I'm saying that that's the charm that the 26 episode per season formats, you know, this double bladed sword that sometimes you get some really great episodes, sometimes you get just fucking garbage filler episodes. But if you're a Trek fan and you revel in pedantic, inane little details like what did Tuvok act like as a child, like being able to like, this episode sucked, I'm gonna forget all this shit that was bad, but like I will now remember that Tuvok got blue balled so rough that they had to send him off to like logic boot camp basically.
One other thing I wanted to highlight, just as a sort of meta analysis before we get into the exact details of what happens, is Janeway and her boyfriend that she establishes in this episode, Jaffin. It goes to show the quality of the actors. Kate Mulgrew is able to, over the course of a single episode, establish chemistry and a believable romantic connection with her character and this guest star. It with like a third of the runtime of the episode, so we're talking like 20 minutes, right? More than we ever see between Tom Paris and B'Elanna Torres. And I don't know if that is pure acting ability, that Kate Mulgrew is just that much better than Robbie, and I'm not gonna blame Roxanne Dawson because we know her chops are strong, or it's just they could never find chemistry between them the way that they kind of were trying to. It just wasn't clicking. But
Can
it
we
was
blame the
striking.
script?
It was striking to me how easy it was for me to buy into that romance. And then I was watching this with Stevie and being like, God, how many fucking episodes of B'Elanna and Tom's romance have I watched? 80% of it's garbage. But they give the captain finally a romantic interest and just this rom-com subplot. And it's great. It's perfect. It works. It's awesome. Just out of fucking nowhere. I don't even build up. I don't know who this fucking guy is. Like, I learned everything I get to know about him in this 45 minutes.
To
And
be
that's it.
fair, she did have the I fell in love by accident with the anti-telepathic Inquisitor guy, where you are the only person who watched that episode and did not enjoy the romantic subplot in that. So, I mean,
I did hate that, yes.
You're wrong, as you are about a lot of things, and as you have
Hold
been
on, hold on.
punished, as
Listen,
you've been punished on the trauma support group. Anybody out there who was on deck to rub Joe's face in the shit about thinking Susie Plaxton was a Duras sister?
I got her confused with other female Klingons. It wasn't like I said Susie Plaxton played, a Cardassian or something like that. I got it confused with like some like Bajoran side piece of Gul Dukat. It was she's fucking Worf's baby mama, and I confused her with the Duras sisters, who are the other booby Klingons that we see in TNG. Okay, I wasn't that far off.
I understand what you're saying, and I condemn you regardless. And anybody who is there to rub Joe's face in the shit, you are my Chadich. The Tom B'Elanna thing, I want to call that out. B'Elanna is skulking about for a minute there, and we're talking about this real loose format because that's like the first 2/3 of this episode is just zipping around different parts of this little industrial town, checking in on all the people who have been duped into this new life. B'Elanna skulking about kind of throws this knowing look out that I thought for a minute maybe the brainwashing didn't work on her. That's not the case. But as I'm watching her, I'm like, man, this is the second time B'Elanna has had to go through a bullshit fake simulation brainwashing pregnant. The last time being Worst World, where she was saddled with a holographic baby of a Nazi.
I was just about to say, like, not just a holographic baby, but literally a Nazi that knocked her up as part of that simulation. Dark. That is a child who's going to have problems.
What God, let's talk holodeck here for a second. Like, in worst world, if she had a baby that was like a holographic suit applied over her, like, just think of the awful stuff you could really put people through on the holodeck. Where, like, you could do like these Dragon Ball Z training routines where you're like, make my legs weigh an extra 100 pounds, or you know God, if they could put a fucking baby belly on her, like, you can get penis extensions in the holodeck for
Oh
sure.
yeah. God.
Nobody in the holodeck is under 8 inches. We see part of the industrial charm of this city. There's a lot of iron. Those stairs that were over by what I'm guessing is a train, is that the same stairs from Batman Begins that he's like talking to Rachel from?
This is one of those, you already mentioned that the cost saving for this episode comes in the sets. They clearly shot this at some pre-established industrial location somewhere in LA, right? Like, because it's very metal. There's lots of like stairs and walkways and that sort of thing. They clearly didn't build all that, right? That's not in the cards. So this exists somewhere. And I didn't see in the memory alpha if there was any specific location that this was shot at, didn't specify, but it is clearly like somewhere in Southern California. This place gets used, right? And if it's Batman Begins, or if it's other Trek, or it's other TV shows, it has that familiar look of, we need an industrial looking place to shoot these scenes. Let's go to that place because the owner has the number. Like, all the agents have this guy's number that owns this place, and he's willing to let you shoot there at night, right? For almost nothing.
Mm-hmm. Nights when the movies film, and then early morning is porn.
I mean, you got to have a schedule. And then the mid afternoons when you're actually doing work.
Speaking
After,
of
after, after you have the porn cleanup crew come in.
Speaking of meat nectar,
The porn stars actually work there. It's like, hey, they come in early to shoot the porn.
yeah. So the fluids, like I said. Speaking of meat nectar, Harry Kim. We cut over to Voyager stuff finally, right?
We do,
There's
before they cut over the Voyager, we do get the big tease, which is they're doing these inoculations, and I'm doing air quotes, where everyone has to get these injections regularly, which they're not trying to hide what's going on here. So it's obvious this is part of whatever
COVID.
fucky shit is happening. Yeah, so you get your COVID vaccines, right? And Tuvok, he's pretty vaccine hesitant, shall we say? And he gets a flashback to some point in the past when he's being restrained and being given his vaccination by force, and he does not like that. And that's your first hint of what actually happened. That's when you finally cut to the Delta Flyer, which has got Chakotay, Harry Kim, and Snarf Snarf on it, and they are rolling back to the mothership because they were doing some trading with the Nar Shaddaa, which is very close to Nar Shaddaa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Huts.
So they're trading with the
Neelix
Huts.
is dealing with the Huts. That new Jack Neelix.
And Ensign Kim is not feeling well. He's got a tummy ache because he drank some meat juice.
This was one of the most vile descriptions. He's got a stomach full of parasites. He drank a sweet nectar that was squeezed out of meat. He is mad at Neelix because Neelix did not make Chakotay have any, and Neelix says, well, that would have been cruel because Chakotay is a vegetarian. This caught me. I mean, we've talked before about Chakotay being a vegetarian. I think it's an absurd concept that anybody in Starfleet is not a vegetarian. I mean, everything you're eating, for the most part, seems like it's coming out of the replicator. And I gotta say, like, based on what I've heard from vegetarians I know that fell off the wagon, like, the first time you go back on meat, it's a rough road and it's discouraging. So if you could have a hamburger that tastes just like meat, but really it's like replicated whatever the fuck it is, foam or whatever, like, I think at a certain point I'd be like, you know what, I don't need to have that real steak because I don't know, I'm on the toilet the rest of the night. So
Well, I mean, the replicated meat's still going to be basically the proteins and such. That's probably going to give you an upset stomach if you don't consume any meat at all. So they may not be eating live meat carved from a previously alive animal anymore, but they are definitely not vegetarians. They're eating protein. It's just synthetic protein instead of the real deal.
Did they just shove a bunch of cows and like dead bodies into the replicator like feed tank before the ship left dry dock and just like build your replicator reserve?
As I recall from reading like the technical manual stuff from uh like the
The
books and
red
that
book.
sort of thing,
Yeah.
the way replicator like matter works is there's like blocks of different types of matter that represent the stock that's used by replicators to create things. So the way it's supposed to work is you have the obviously the energy necessary to pull that matter and then recombine it in the configuration requested. So that's factor one. You have to have the machine that's going to do the computation, and you have to have the energy necessary to do the recombination. But the actual material has to come from somewhere, right? You can't just create matter out of nothing.
Tribbles.
So you have this like blocks of matter that you use to recombine into things, and there's supposed to be like non-biological matter and biological matter, because you can't eat steel, right? You can't eat things that are non-biological. So you have to
Not with
have
that attitude.
so you have to have basically a separation between your feedstock for food and your feedstock for things that are not food. So I guess you could say like there's some cows that are ground into paste and then they're used
Like
to
chicken
create
nuggets from
hot.
McDonald's.
Yeah,
It's the pig
exactly.
paste.
Like
Yeah.
those turkey legs, right? Turkeys don't have legs that size. You
Lips,
ever been to the
assholes,
Ren
they got to
Fair?
go somewhere, right?
Yeah.
The whole time you're talking about that, I'm just thinking in my mind like HP printers, and if that's the same racket that like replicators are, where you get your replicator and the initial like feed stock you're talking about is like only a fifth of what a full cartridge should be. So then you go to Staples to buy more replicator ink, but then you find out that the new replicator ink, the full cartridges cost more than the actual replicator did, so you're better off just buying a new replicator.
I recall it being true at some point. I don't know if it's true anymore. That at the peak of the inkjet printer, that the toner for HP printers was more expensive per ounce than gold.
I believe that completely under the work from home nonsense, and I don't want to derail things, but like I had to buy fucking multi-purpose like laser copy whatever thing, and like right during December 2020, man, I it was impossible to find. So if anything, I think that stuff's gone up in cost. Anyways, so we have the three musketeers. They saved the fucking entire ship from getting ripped apart in a quantum slipstream. This is our timeless crew, dude.
Yeah, these guys pretty frequently work together. Um, Neelix wasn't part of the Timeless crew. That was just Chakotay
Oh, you know
and
what? You're right.
and
My
Kim.
bad.
But
The
they got
doctor
the
is
the
my favorite.
doctor for the third person for that. But this is the crew that all three of them were on the got the Vietnam flashbacks.
Yeah, minus Tom.
This crew has been out there doing things together, so there is a continuity in them being a team that I like.
Yes.
And they arrive back at where Voyager's supposed to meet them, and they're like, uh, they're not here. That's bad. What do we do? And eventually they locate Voyager inside of a nebula. Uh, what we know that because we cut to the inside of Voyager and we see the Doctor like elbows deep in a fucking console, but with red shoulder patches,
And a
not blue,
phaser.
and it's strapped. And so clearly things are not good on Voyager. There's alarms going off. There's she's fucking arguing with the computer over trying to fix things. not having a good time. He gets told there's an intruder alert on the bridge. He rolls up
I
and
like he says identify it, and they say sensor resolution's only at 20%. Like, it's cool to see those details present and like seal the deal as to like why didn't this thing happen.
And he gets to the bridge, and it's Harry and Chakotay in the two environmental suits from First Contact, the only
Sorry,
two.
Neelix, you got to stay on the ship.
And they're in the suits because, of course, all of the life support's off because, as we'll find out, the only person on board is the doctor, and he doesn't need to breathe.
I love it.
Nice.
Great detail.
We get basically a backstory from the doctor's retelling, which is at some point very, very shortly after this Delta Flyer left. So Delta Flyer was gone for almost a week. So this happened like the moment they left the driveway, right? Like, so this whole crisis has played out while they were gone, as they hit a mine that was flooding the ship with a tetrion radiation that was uncontrollable. And the only way that they could save themselves was to get all of everyone off the ship before they died of radiation poisoning. And as a result, Janeway had to vest the doctor with his emergency command hologram powers, which we have not seen since the concept was invented during our first run-in with the Tater Boys a couple seasons ago. That was a Season Sucks episode, if I recall. And he is now in charge. Like, you have to get Voyager through this crisis. We need to get the fuck out of here, and then we'll meet back up. But you're in charge, Doctor. This is what you always wanted. Here it is. The thing has happened.
I loved it. Back in the Tater Boy episode, like, he initiates the emergency command hologram and the fucking pips CG onto his collar, and I'm like, this is fucking stupid, and poo-poo on all of it. But seeing it here in practice, we've gone on at length, like, this should happen. He shouldn't be wearing red. He should be the emergency engineering hologram. Like, there should be a hologram for every season. And this is why, obviously, you can't apply common sense like this to Voyager. Otherwise, episodes will be boring and suck. You can't have holograms doing all the work. But, like, in practice, this is right on the money, that the crew leaves the danger and the hologram does the holographic stuff and he's fine. When she initiates the ECH, though, and rebrands him red, it was one of those, like, really earned growth point moments for the show where they're reaching, Brian Fuller is reaching, and Bill Willer or Kenneth Biller are reaching back into things we have all been there for with these characters. And, like, that's, what was Prophecy was 2 episodes ago?
Correct.
Right? Like,
correct.
If this was a horror movie, I would be very scared for the Doctor, because all of his dreams have been coming true. He's been acknowledged by the flesh bags as a human being and made a godfather. His hopes and dreams of evolving past his programming and being more to the crew are coming true. Like, everything's coming up Millhouse.
He should definitely not say he's 4 days from retirement.
He's going to get hit by a car, or some fucking Final Destination shit's going to happen to him. I'm scared from him. But no, it's cool. It's a moment of justification and validation. It feels good. And when the crew is hitting the escape pods, the CG of the pods blowing out of Voyager, like the doors coming up and pods shooting off, looks fucking great.
We get that backstory, and the Doctor elaborates that the ship got jumped by a bunch of other ships as soon as everyone abandoned ship. And he was forced to essentially enter combat by himself, which he does successfully, including, like, a really cool combat scene where he blows the engines out of the ship attacking Voyager, where he's like, fuck him, shoot him. You're like, just take him out. I'm done with this. I'm an amoral computer program. There's only so many fucks I have to give.
We already know that I'm an unshackled AI that is not above murder, And now that the color of my uniform has changed, I no longer have the veneer of a Hippocratic oath. Like, it is weapons hot, smoke them if you got them. Uh, Fuck you and hooray for me.
For all of the, is the doctor ever killed anybody, or is the doctor a murderer? He definitely killed people in that scene. Like, you see Voyager's phasers blow the fuck out of the two rear engine compartments to the ship that he's firing at. Like, people died. There's no way they didn't.
Mm-hmm. Hourlies too.
He goes and books it into a nebula because there's other ships looking for Voyager, and he's like, okay, this was obviously some kind of trap. This sucks, but I have to get the ship fixed before I can do anything. So I'm gonna hide and try and fix it on my own. And that's what was happening when the Delta Flyer came back.
Here's another reason why you can't have the doctor just be in charge and AI this stuff is this one guy on the ship alone is just as good at fighting other ships and solving dilemmas and everything else as the ship full of its normal crew. So this makes everybody look real bad in comparison that one guy is operating at 100% here.
I mean, he's good at shooting, but he actually is struggling to fix it by himself, despite all the knowledge.
Sure, but I mean, like, ducking into a nebula and all the stuff that usually it takes like a crew to come up with the answer. He's just shooting from the hip, and he's killing it, man. 10 out of 10 on his first real day at work.
We flash back to the stuff on the planet, and the two things that are happening are, we continue to see Janeway have her hooking up with her new boyfriend, Jaffin. So they have a meet cute at work. They have dinner. She is a little flirty. He's more flirty with her. She starts to reciprocate. It's very rom-com-y. Very nice, very sweet. They chit-chat a lot. We see a lot of their small talk. And it's the standard, they start hanging out with each other. They start hanging out in his quarters a lot. He makes her a meal. She tries to make him a meal and fucks it up. She burns the roast. And she's like, well, let's go get out to eat. And he's like, I'm hungry, but it's for that poontang. and they have that kiss of like, this is a PG show, so we can't show fucking, so we're going to show mouth fucking. and then fade out. And then come back to the scene post fucking where Kathryn Janeway's having her cup of coffee, snuggled up next to her man. It's all very nice. It's all like, this is Kathy having a life. It's kind of nice to see. The other thing is that Tuvok has continued to start to get flashbacks to what actually happened, which plays into the fact he is a psychically sensitive person. He does not have the sort of developed psychic powers of someone like Kes, but we've seen many times in the past his Vulcan abilities are above the Vulcan norm. And so rewriting his memories has not completely rewritten his memories because of the density and complexity of the Vulcan mind, particularly his. Which is why, again, like, there's other Vulcans who are on Voyager, but it makes sense that he would be the one that would be most resistant to this. We see a flashback where it looks like all the Voyager crew have been scooped up by some do-gooder aliens who are going to treat their radiation stuff. But really, they're mind zapping them. They're doing brain stuff, and Tuvok sees that this isn't good, sees like this is a little sus, tries to intervene, and he gets the night juice and injected into his neck. And Tuvok's starting to realize something's up, but he's not yet put everything together in his brain to be able to express it.
This is the weakest scene of the episode for me to see Tuvok basically delirious with radiation poisoning, and across the hospital from him, he sees Janeway undergoing medical treatment. And you're telling me that Detective Tuvok, the most inept gumshoe on the job, is going to be able to look at alien technology and say, no, that's definitely not anti-radiation stuff. That's definitely a brainwasher. I don't buy it. But
there needed to be some kind of line in there that helped that along. I agree, but whatever. Like, it's one of those things that they only have so much time to tell the story, so I understand.
They don't. And that's, again, tying back to my complaint, is there's so much fuck around time wasting in here. Like, Future Zen Part 1 and 2, right? all the bullshit with Sarah Silverman. Like, Voyager loves going away from space and sci-fi and all of the stuff that I'm watching Star Trek for to try and tell these bullshit other stories. And I don't care and I don't want to see that stuff. And here's a moment where you could have put an extra throwaway line in there like, hey, look, she's, Chart says that she's got really high mathematics. She'll be good for the power plant or something kind of sinister there. And they don't. They just, Tuvok ramrods his way into jumping to a conclusion here. Like, you could have had that scene, and instead, I got to watch fucking Janeway burn another roast or uh, any of the other asinine day-to-day stuff these guys are doing.
I liked
Like,
the asinine day-to-day stuff, though. That stuff super works in this episode. I like her burning the roast for her boyfriend is such a like,
too
oh,
soon.
Janeway's incompetent at cooking, regardless if she's the captain or not, right? Like it is a factor of her personality that runs deeper than her job. She's just not good at cooking. I just liked that. I liked that that's the case. I like that she's still drinking coffee. I like that like there are certain elements for personality that are sort of primordial. And you see that reflected in her plot line.
So we cut back over to the Delta Flyer and Voyager. They have gotten the ship back up and operational. They think they know where the crew of Voyager was taken. We find out that it's going to be a 3-day journey at max warp. Boy, aren't those some fast shuttle pods.
The crew may have been found immediately because it was just a trap, right? Like there was a mine. It was set up to make them all escape so they could scoop them up.
Space pirates jump
Yeah,
out, but
yeah.
then
So
there's
the escape pods probably didn't actually make it very far. This was they got scooped up and then spirited away to this other planet. That I buy.
So, were they sick with radiation poisoning for 4 to 5 days before they got there, or did they go through indoctrination on the ships and transport to the planet?
It looked like they probably went through indoctrination while, like, right after they got scooped up. So by the time they got to the planet, they were ready.
Fresh. I'll buy that. I'll buy that for $1. Voyager rolls over there. As you mentioned earlier, this planet is busy. There's space stations in orbit. There's a lot of space traffic. This is probably the most space traffic we've seen in orbit around anything since the fucking assholes from Virtuoso.
Yeah, they also had a busy planet. I remember that. I guess that really is it, though. Man.
That's the last one I remember anyway.
That's probably a season and a half ago worth of episodes.
Yeah, and that one was silly too because those guys were like very xenophobic, so it didn't make sense for whatever.
They had a lot of traffic just because they were super technological, but not because they were interfacing or trading with anyone. Whatever. Let's never think of the tiny assholes ever again.
I will agree to those terms. But these assholes, though, right? They hail them and they say, listen, we think our crew's over there. And then, generic government bureaucrats like, nuh-uh. And they're like, yeah, totally. And then he's like, well, if they are here, they're probably happier and they don't want to go back. Why would they need to go to the other end of the fucking galaxy when they can just stay here and be happy? They're so happy.
They straight up admit that they're there, but they just don't know who Voyager is. So clearly they're lying.
Yeah, the dude on the view screen's basically like holding his hand up and doing the Guardians of the Galaxy thing where he's turning the crank and like inflating his middle finger at Chakotay. The Doctor's still rocking the red emergency command hologram outfit. Gets pretty aggressive with his negotiations to the point where I was like, man, Chakotay, you gonna rein this guy in or what? He's gonna cause an incident for you here.
I guess that's the C plot of the episode, which is the Doctor's feeling his oats as the emergency command hologram, and even eventually gets into a dispute with Harry over who gets to be in charge after Chakotay ends up going on his secret mission to the surface.
Should we just talk about that right now?
Oh, yes.
As you said, Chakotay's going to go down to the surface, and he's bringing Neelix with him. and he says to Harry, like, hey, don't fuck up while I'm gone. And then the doctor has a fucking audacity to say, shouldn't I be in charge because I have a red uniform and, my 6 billion lines of code and databases like outrank an ensign. And to my great surprise, instead of like the, Chakotay like slapping the EMH down, being like, dude, just fucking stop. He's like, looks at Harry and is just like, you know what? I remember what you did when you were in Nightingale and you fucking sucked. So,
Yes.
hey, I'll tell you what, you guys just work it out amongst yourselves and keep an open comm line. Toodles. And
Yeah,
if
like
that isn't the most biggest fuck you slap in the well deserved biggest fuck you slap in the face to Harry Kim, then I don't know what is.
if there wasn't literally an episode like 6 or 7 back that was about how Harry Kim is not ready to be in command, then I would say it was an audacious slap in the face. But we just had the story. It's fresh in the mind. It was this fucking season. So, yeah, I think Chakotay's correct to be like, Harry, you haven't had a good track record being in charge lately. So, you and the doctor are going to co-manage this situation. Check each other a little bit. I think that's probably correct here.
Also, probably correct is the man. It's been a while since I got hot about a subdermal communicator, but here it is, back in
This
my
is
face.
a subdermal transporter beacon,
It's a
specifically.
fucking communicator, and they put
Okay.
it in his hand. This is all that goes into putting a subdermal communicator in. You lay it in your palm. The doctor flashes a light at it. It sinks in. Bingo, bango, boingo. You now have extended transporter range and enhanced sensor resolution and all this other stuff that would like render, I don't know, 2/3 of the fucking Voyager plots inert. And what is, I think
I
this is
just want to
second.
point out to you that you have been complaining for this so long that the first time you complained about it, you only had one child.
I can't let it go. And I'll tell you, all 3 of these children are going to be fitted with subdermal communicators when the
Communicators.
technology becomes available. They're lucky I don't RFID their asses right now.
But ultimately, what they decide to do to find out what's going on is that they're going to take Neelix's shuttle, great continuity point,
Yes.
and Chakotay had himself surgically altered because he talked with a bunch of high-level government officials, so he's got to look different. And under an assumed name, he and Neelix are going to go and say that they're looking for work, and they have the technical bona fides that they feel like they can get to work at this power plant where they know everyone else is working, and see what the fuck is going on. And sure enough, that plan works. They're desperate, and these enlightened space travelers from the Alpha Quadrant are good enough at beep booping at the Spencer's Gift power plant such that they get jobs right away.
So let's talk real quick. The underlying theme here, as we joked at the top, is that there is a big labor shortage in this part of space for whatever fucking reason. And rather than turn to AI or holograms from the people having the hologram war or anything else, they're just like, we're going to kidnap people and press them into labor. Solid concept. I'm there for it. I like the fact that Chakotay, when he goes to the doctor, like, hey, isn't plastic surgery like a specialty of yours? And he's like, yes. They turn him into like the alien from the Space Texan episode that like the bad guy that wasn't supposed to be the bad guy that was the bad guy. And again, for the record, man, I love this shit. When the aliens that were the primary focus 2 episodes are still being cycled through, like we got to see them in the void, which was cool. The Space Texans.
Yeah, it was the actual Space Texans in that one.
I like it. It's good continuity. It's stuff we should have seen more of. That these guys aren't just little blips on the trek home, that there's overlap and commingling, and we get a little bit more use out of these new species, and learning things about them benefits us the deeper we go into the story.
Speaking of aliens that we encounter, the bartender that Tom is working for is definitely a shithead. It's like a different kind of shithead, but I had shades of season 1 shitheads. That female bar owner that had
Yeah,
like Yeah, that was definitely a almost shithead style headpiece that she had on. She
She's
wasn't actually a shithead, but it was close.
Yeah, she's got crusty crap in her hair, but I feel I feel the character. I like the way she's portraying it. I like her interactions with Tom. She's kind of got some Maeve vibes from Westworld.
Yeah, I mean the knowledgeable female barkeep that is above everyone's shit, but is still going to serve them is a nice fiction genre piece, and I don't mind its inclusion here at all. We finally kind of get to the end of this episode when Chakotay gets down there, finds out like Janeway doesn't know him, no one knows him. Neelix has donned his new Jack Neelix persona, has done some information gathering, like with a lot of tact. He like goes to the bar and he's like chatting up Tom and getting information out of him by just chit chatting with him without revealing too much. And then when Chakotay comes in, he like gives him the information without like being too obvious. It's Neelix at his best, right? It's Neelix is portrayed as the wizened, streetwise space rat. I liked that that's the Neelix that we get this time, rather than the over-enthusiastic rube that we got a few episodes ago.
Punk bitch chump Neelix that we've been saddled with a few times now. So they start trying to like touch base, and the presumption here is that they're going to be able to find the crew, make contact. They're gonna be like, "Oh my God, Chakotay, here you are. Now you can get us out of this prison. Push this jailbreak thing." But Chakotay gets into the power plant. He's able to actually make contact with Janeway, and he's like, "Hey, it's me, Chakotay," and she's like, "Who the fuck are you?" And they start realizing, okay, there's some brainwashing in play here. They continue about their path, trying to decide how they're going to start extracting people, who they should extract. And we go back over to Tuvok, who is not doing so hot.
Before we move away from the bar scene, I want to mention that Neelix says he ran into two Voyager crew members when he was working that didn't recognize him. And the fact that it was these specific two that were mentioned was just another one of those like deep cuts. He says, I ran into Celis and Mulcahy, and neither of them recognized me. Tal Celis is the 90s Hottie Bajoran lady that was a part of the lowest decks crew that we actually saw in The Haunting of Deck 12 later on.
Yeah.
Punching Harry Kim in the stomach or whatever.
No, she had a folding chair.
Yeah, just ready to fight.
Uh-huh.
And then the other one, Mulcahy, do you remember Drone? The fucking jabroni that gets stuck on like watch this bullshit that's happening duty and then gets like gets partially assimilated.
Yeah.
That's Mulcahy.
Let me stand here and watch all this shit go sideways without fucking calling anybody and then getting knocked out. I've worked hard to try and forget as much about Drone as I can, so fuck you for bringing that up.
I just like that they got mentioned, though. Like that they, instead of just two names you've never heard of before, it's two characters that have had speaking roles on the show in the past.
Joe, are we pathetic?
We're doing an episode. We're doing a Star Trek Voyager podcast. Of course we are.
I know.
The fuck are you asking that question for?
I'm saying within the framework of something as pathetic as a Voyager podcast. Like, has Voyager beaten us down with such low quality and lack of continuity and just atrocious handling of their own material that we can get excited about name checking throwaway characters? Like,
yes, absolutely. Like, and this might be for a larger discussion between the two of us that's not an hour into this episode, but we're in the back half of the last season of Voyager and we are praising them like, a newborn child learning to not soil their
put
nappy.
Its foot in its mouth. Like,
yeah,
oh, cool, look, she's discovered her feet. Oh,
yeah,
she knows how her hand works now.
We're praising them for the most basic levels of competence that they should be so far beyond at this point. And yeah, it's because the expectations are so low that the level of quality has never been particularly consistent.
Speaking of bad quality, I really like the onboarding HR procedure here for this very important power plant. They just take randos off the street, take them into like the important parts. And they're like, yeah, here's your job. And this is a really important thing I'm telling you about here. Hey, buddy, you paying attention? Yeah, I'm totally not checking out my old captain over there. Okay, cool. Well, we'll see you later. Good luck. I liked Tuvok when he kind of slips his leash there and he attacks Seven of Nine, just casually slapping the mind meld on her.
Yeah,
No,
and big spoiler. That's going to be a big part of episode 2 of this two-parter.
oh, you don't say.
Little mind meld happened. But yeah, he puts the Vulcan grip on her to like give her like the same sense that he has that shit is not right. You definitely like. I like the way that they made her up different. Like her hair
Yeah,
is different. She goes by Annika. There's again, she's different but the same. Like everybody else is unnerved by this, and
she calls security, and I can only assume that this native race is strong as fuck because we know that Tuvok is basically Terminator strong.
especially when he is in like a mind rage sort of situation, which he is right now.
Yeah. So like he should have been like ripping faces off, but instead two dudes wrestle him down and
They
take him
grabbed
off
him
to
by his arm. It works on men too.
yeah, and they take him off to brainwashing gay camp or whatever that is to make him forget the past and get with the future. Um, we're gonna wrap things up here with Chakotay and Neelix deciding that the first person they're going to try to extract is going to be
Balana.
Balana,
Yeah.
which kind of a dick move to put her through stress and jostle her around when she's got Klingon baby Jesus in her.
It also makes the most sense because she's got Klingon baby Jesus in her, so get her out of the situation as quickly as possible. Like
True.
pros and cons. Like none of this is going to be particularly easy. She was the only one who was alone, right? So it's either that or wait until Tom gets off and try to get him, which you don't know. Like,
What you're gonna get.
yeah, they know she's leaving by herself. They know it's night. They know like if they're going to do a kidnapping, it's going to be now, right? So they pull the trigger. I get it.
Give me that stank Chakotay moment where he's like, all right, I've got a big problem I need to fix. This is the biggest dilemma we've run into since the time we got stuck in the Void Thunderdome. Janeway is a real pain in the ass of that episode with her ethics and bullshit. I'm not going through that hassle again. I want to go quick and dirty on that. We're going to go with Maquis crew. This is going to be a Maquis.
I'm going to find my boys and I'm going to unbrainwash them first. And we'll get to the Starfleet people. It's not that I don't like them. It's that I want to solve this problem before I let them know what's going on. It's better to ask forgiveness than permission.
We're pulling an Ocean's 11 style heist here. Only the jewels are the rest of the crew. And yeah, I need Brad Pitt Maquis, not boring straight laced Tuvok. They get her. She screams. There's a chase scene. And somehow
the episode just ends with the chase ongoing, to be continued. Oh, and Janeway's boyfriend asks Janeway to move in with him.
Chakotay's
their romance is going, like it's her plot literally occurs in a vacuum. Nothing that goes on with her intersects with the main plot at all, except Chakotay awkwardly like introducing himself to her at the power plant. That's it. She has her own. She is living in her own world.
There are massive stakes at play here, and I will credit the episode. Like, it's rare to get a cliffhanger where I actually feel like really invested and curious and like kind of edge of my seat. And this somehow, against all odds, is able to accomplish that. And you've got B'Elanna being abducted to Voyager, fighting tooth and claw with Neelix and the EMH as they try to like subdue her and lobotomize her. You've got Chakotay running for his life while the local police are about to gun him down in a back alley and he's cornered up against a force field. And then with all these tension and stuff, then it's like Janeway being asked to move in with her new boyfriend. Like one of these high stakes are not like the others.
So I'm sure it'll shock you to hear that the next episode we're going to watch is season 7, episode 17, Workforce Part 2.
We've got Chakotay, and he's in the pokey. This is a double jailbreak now.
Yeah.
To save Janeway and the rest of Voyager's crew, Chakotay must convince her that her seemingly happy life as a worker on Quora is not real. Ooh, he's going to be Morpheus. This is going to be the The
Take
Matrix episode.
take the red pill, Janeway.
There's your episode title for next week.
Don't take the COVID vaccine. Take the red pill. All right, before we get canceled forever, this has been Feature Please, a hateful voice to Delta Quadrant, and we'll see you next week.